the whole world with Islam teaching specifically to the Christians.
Yes, 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 yes. Greetings, greetings. Let's get right into this video right here. Let's address Candace. The real Candace. Is it the real Candace or the fake Candace? Is there a difference? Well, let's address Candace. Candace Owens. Now, I said something in an earlier video before. I said, because her name, her name Candace, the Bible's about the queen of the Ethiopians and the whole link with the queen of Sheba, she's rising up. She's rising up in this generation. So it would appear. So it would seem like they would try to make us believe. So Candace Owens, yeah. Some call her Kundis. But it's something about the name, the name Candace Owens. I don't know if you know the scripture on it. Let's get right into this. But here, she's really the Manchurian Candace, right? So we're going to call this one here the Manchurian Candidate. It's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes, brothers and sisters. It's all in the eyes. So over here, let's bring that out. Yeah, so we went to King James Version here, Kandake. Kandake is the way it would have been said in the more of the ancient Kandake. Candace. In the English, it's called Candace. Now, Thayer, a very well reputed definitionary, dictionary, Bible dictionary. Here they define it as prince of servants. Isn't Candace going after the French, the gender, right? Question the gender of the French PM, Prime Minister's wife, Brigitte Macron, Brigitte Macron. But here it says Candace, prince of servants. This could be incorrect, but here it says a queen of Ethiopia. But isn't Ethiopia those old-time Negroes? Isn't that how it was defined according to academia? The Negroes. You know what I mean? Those black people. But she went against the black folks too, right? Yeah, so is it the real Candace? See, this is the real Candace we're talking about right here, Bible, biblically speaking. Oh, Candace, she has what she's what I don't know if we call her a born again experience, but she's become part of this what's it, the SSPX, something like that. This Roman Catholic Vaticanian cult, a particular cult. They have a very interesting. We need to do some videos on this, but hey, check out Nassim Black. Check out Nassim Black. He did a very good expose, pointing to Candace Owens' recent kind of conversion to this Roman Catholic sect, which has some very radical and some very racist and very unbiblical views. It's interesting because the Protestants used to refer to, Rome and the Roman Catholics as, the Antichrist. But Candace now, she's also going against the other J words, the J words, aka, she's going against the Jews as well. So there's a lot of controversy around this Candace here. So here they tell us it's not a proper name of an individual. Check this out, right? And now to all the other Candaces out there, this is not really about you, but it is about the name, right? And that of a dynasty of Ethiopian queens, foreign origin. Strong's doesn't bring out anything more. Right there, and the biblical verse right here. Very important biblical verse right there. But that's not our subject matter, right? That's not our subject matter, right? Concerning that Ethiopian Jew. That verse there in the Bible is speaking about the Ethiopian Jew, right? Who was called the official, or in the translations, a eunuch. Oh, more about gender, huh? He was called a eunuch. Now, Christ speaks about 3 kinds of eunuchs in the scripture. That's not our subject here, but just to give you a little bit of footnote, a little background right here. But let's touch on Candace, right? Candace, Manchurian Candace. Manchurian Candace Owens. All right, we got some more because it's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes. Rosemary's Baby. Oops. That's actually another another angle to the story right here. Right? But here we have Candace Owens. Right? Is Candace Owens a sort of a Manchurian candidate? Mm. Is she Rosemary's mother? Mm. Because when you want to talk about, people's gender and call them out, right? That means if you can call others out, you should be able to be called out, right? But here, this is a follow-up to say that no, she is not, a queen of the South. And no, she's not rising up in judgment, but she's rising up, right, to a judgment, right? She's rising up to a judgment. Don't wear flip-flops in public and then say you're a bad man, right? But here we have Candace Owens. She begins a lot of controversy. She's like a controversy magnet right here. Candace Owens, right? The Manchurian Candace, right? Or is she Kundis? I guess it all depends on who you ask, but she definitely, as they say, she married up, right? Didn't she marry up? It must be like a dream, right? They say it was all a dream. Was it all a dream? Must be like a dream. What's the matter, right, with Candace Owens, right? What is the matter with Candace Owens? Candace Owens, the Manchurian Candace Owens. Okay, so here. Let's get right in it. All right, let's get right into this video right here. All right, hang on. You know how people are, and how we appear to be often are two different things. How we really are and how we really, appear to be are two different. We all got to face that. We all should really know ourselves. I think it's one of the great English writers said, above all else, be true to thyself. But you have to kind of know yourself in order to be true to yourself. So is Candace Owens, is she true to herself? Does Candace Owens know herself? Is she a type of Manchurian Candace? Not the Manchurian Candidate, but Manchurian Candace. She plays a lot of this politics. Now, I did a video earlier with a brethren of mine, and I point out, because of her name, Candace, the Queen of the South. There's a prophecy, there's a word in the scripture, Matthew chapter 12, verse 42, where it says, the Queen of the South shall rise up in the judgment. She's all about judging people, right? Isn't she? She's all about judging people and, condemning people based on, she's judge, jury, and executioner with this generation, and she'll condemn it. She's been doing a lot of that. Now, this is what we had put as a thumbnail to the previous video, based on that quote here from Matthew's Gospel, right? Matthew's Gospel, right? Now, this is a very disturbing progression from racist attacks against black people. I know black people, many of us and many of y'all probably still say, black people can't be racist. I know Dr. Nellie Fuller Jr., get what he's saying, but what is really racist, right? These racist attacks, would you say what Candace Owens has done, right, against black people, when she was on the other proverbial side? Remember, they always tell us this in politics, that it's still the same bird. Whether it's the right wing or whether it's the left wing, it's still the same bird, right? And then to the anti-Semitic, right, slurs, the anti-Semitic rhetoric. The anti-Semitic rhetoric, this is like the part 2, right, based on the part 1 against the blacks, blacks and Jews, and even we, the black Jews of the line of the tribe of Judah. And now, added to this is more phobia. Phobia is a psychological, mental condition, phobias. Now we have not just homophobic, but these transphobic rumors that's targeting, from Candace, Manchurian Candace, that's targeting the French First Lady. So what about this right here? Oh, this hate, whether it's black hate, whether it's self-hate, right? Whether it's black hate, whether it's Jew hate, whether hate, hate, it down presses. It down presses in waves. Each wave is targeting a different identity, right? A different identity. We're speaking about Manchurian Candace, right? Did you see the movie Manchurian Candidate, the old one? You remember the old one with Frank Sinatra? Got to check that one out right there. At first, right, it was the lies that Manchurian Candace, it was the lies, right, that was wrought, right, and produced and put out against black people. Well, let's not even go through, you know what I mean, whether it's the Trayvon Martin, whether it's, oh my goodness, need not go there, but we as black folks, we know that. She burnt the bridge behind her, so she has to keep going forward. But she actually, right, as some say, a tether, right, and this is a real kind of a tether, the dangerous kind of tether, right, spun from centuries of systemic racism. But she's a part of the system. Remember the Matrix movie? So Candace, all the lies spoken against black people, right? All the lies spoken based on centuries of systemic, right, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, what some call white supremacy, centuries of systemic racism reinforced in law and in folklore, right? Waging war on bodies, waging war on culture, right? Waging war on communities. Right? This is what Candace, has gotten herself caught up in. This is what she has kind of made a name, right, for herself. Right? She made a name for herself, right? Based on this anti-black, right, rhetoric. Now of course she's black, right? But is she one of us? You know what I'm saying? She doesn't believe she's black, and yes, we black, but she's a different sort of black, right? Kind of black white, the black white, right? Remember the Promise Key brothers, the Promise Key. We'll talk about the black white, right? I just thought about it, but I need to share that because some might not know about the whole black white, right? But I'm sure you can get a good idea, at least for what we're bringing forward right here, right? Not like us, right? Not like us, right? She may be our color, but is she really our kind, right? Words of one's mouth, meditation of one's heart, right? That's a real Niger for you, right? A real Niger. So let's stop, everyone, let's stop misusing the N-word, you know what I'm saying? Right? From Niger to nigger. Right? Now, let's get to Candace. I think this is how Candace probably sees herself. Right? But this is actually how she is now. Now, from the blacks, first they came for the blacks, right? First they came for the blacks, right? Yeah, first they came for the blacks. Right? First she came for the blacks, the Manchurian Candace, right? Then she came for the Jews, right? Then she came for the Jews, the other J words, right? The Jews, right? An old hatred, based on the old hatred, repackaged, mechanical, relentless, blaming, right? Their identity, for everything and for every ill. And today, what is Candace doing today? Well, Candace nowadays, this is the gender, right? Now it's all about gender, right? So she's gone from this so-called, she still considers herself somewhat conservative, but, on this really steroids, conservatism, right? So-called black, quote, unquote, whatever that means, right? Conservative, right? She's gone from that, right, to this, the gender, right? So from that agenda, right, to the gender of France's First Lady Brigitte Macron, right? This is what has been under attack, right? Of course, it has really attracted to her platform. You have to recognize the Bible says, the love of money, you know what I'm saying, is the what? Root. Not that money itself. Money, the use of money, if it's used wisely, can do a lot of good. You know what I mean? But the love of money is the root. So rumors spread, right? Concerning Brigitte Macron. Now, I'm not saying that, I don't know whether she is or not, but Candace, she is persuaded, right? And in spite of, any dissuasion, she's persuaded that Brigitte Macron, right, was born a man named Jean Michel, right? Well, they say this is a grotesque lie, right? That's rooted not in truth, but in misogyny. Now, think about this for a moment. We have a seemingly black woman married to a white man and have, mixed children, right? And when you hear her views and how she espouses her views, I think about the Manchurian Candace, right? Do you remember the movie Manchurian Candidate, right? So this misogyny, right, from a woman that is supposed to be pro-woman, best, and it's based on a lot of this conspiracy, right? But these attacks, each one of these attacks, right, Candace, Manchurian Candace or Kundus, right, is all cut from the same cloth, stitched together. Fear, phobia, ignorance, ignoring many facts, as she has already done. So we look at her record. We see that when she was attacking black people, right, blaming black people, right, saying that black people are just playing victims. Right now, if you listen to her today, you would think that she, not just today, because this is not something new. It's just that the two wings are part of the same bird, right? But where's this bird flying? I think it's the hubris. The hubris caused who was that? Prometheus? Was it Prometheus? Icarus to fly into the sun, right? The cruelty, right, of silencing those who dared to exist, right? Outside of the so-called white supremacist norm, right, that she accepts. Now, the brothers and sisters know that this whole white supremacy thing, right? Yes, it's a thing, but it's like that beast in Revelation. It is, but it really is not, right? Only if you belie Eve. Only if you want to make believe, right? Now, what was interesting is how she came out against Marco. You know what I mean? How she came out against, let's see if I have this right here. How she came out against, right? Like I said, it's all in the eyes, right? It's all in the eyes, It's all in the eyes, okay? Right here, Candace Owens ruins her reputation and blames the little hat people. But see, the first thing she did is she blamed black people. It also remember the Klan, the KKK. Wasn't the KKK Catholic? And it's not against Catholics, but it's kind of interesting there, right? Wasn't they like Catholics, right? And notice that the two groups that they were most against, were who? Were the blacks and the Jews. And they said they were more against the Jews. I mean, you see her fire right now? Candace, she's on fire. But she's lying. Right? She lied then, she lied now. You know what I mean? If it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, right? She departs Ben Shapiro's website after anti-Semitic commentary. Right here, right? Owens became a star right-wing pundit. And I guess that's one way to call it, pundit, right? Pundit. Then she started promoting ideas, right, about Jewish people, right, drinking Christians' blood. Really? And she has proof of this. How? This all sounds like a kind of repackage. When they talk about blackface, right? They talk about blackface, like white people going in blackface, right? Here we almost have, it seems like a white so-called wannabe supremacist in blackface, right? We see all the signs right here, just showing some of this right here. Candace Owens leaves the Daily Wire, right, site amid Israel and anti-Semitism, right? So it seems as though she turned her attention from so-called black people, right? Black people, right? And because she's this black conservative, right? I guess her mission was to bring black people over. She said right here, cruel Candace Owens says she would beat her trans grandchild with a cane if they came out. Wow. Wow. Candace Owens? Is she okay? Right? She mocked a trans teen who was rejected by their grandmother, then said she would have beaten the kid. That would probably be me. That's what she said. That would probably be her. Wow. This thing's so she's not against violence there, but right, you see the cognitive dissonance, right? Oh, isn't that so pretty? That's so pretty, right? She must be really proud, right? You see the thing about mental health issues is that they are mental health issues, not serious. Now, others will say this is demonic, right? Could there be a combination? Could one be the causative, right, of the other, right? Rosemary Candace, stay tuned, right? Candace 2 years old, Georgie 2 years old. These are her children, right? And I would like wish her all the best, but her cursing other people's children, you know what I'm saying? What she did to the blacks, right? And to the other Jews. How did this happen? How did this happen? It seemed like a nice smile, right? This reminded me back in the days. You remember the conspiracy theories about Disney? About some Disney stars and everything, and how to say they were programmed or something like that. Manchurian, who did I upset this time? Some people are just so narcissistic, right? Censored, right? Now, I thought this was interesting here. I really, really thought this was interesting. You know what I mean? This part. Meghan Markle, yeah. Meghan Markle. So she called Meghan Markle an entitled fake princess. And then she marries a lord. Oh my Lord, right? Lord of his mercy. She marries a lord, Manchurian Candace. She marries a lord. And then she calls out Meghan Markle, and say that she's an entitled fake princess. Somebody wants attention, right? But sometimes you have to be careful what you ask for, right? She goes against, everybody, right? Right? She says, stop the BS. But who is really on that BS? Shut the what up? What? Uh-oh. Right? Racism is not okay. Wow. Make him shut up and make him a sandwich. Right? Shut up and make him a sandwich. Right? Now, this is the interesting part here, brothers and sisters. These attacks, right? These attacks, each one. First, they came for the blacks, right? Right? And Candace said an evil something. Then she came for the Jews, right? Now she's going for the French PM's wife, right? This is her agenda, the agenda of another woman, allegedly a woman, who knows? I don't know. But don't you see a pattern, right? It's like a puzzle. Can't you put the puzzle together, right? Don't you see the pattern, right? These attacks, right? We must name each wave for what it is, right? So we see this it's like a three-wave. First it was the blacks, right? They put a battery right on her back, and she went like the Energizer Bunny Rabbit against the black people this, black people that, right? She was attacked. The attack biatch. Kalba, right? right? Bat Kalba, Bat Kalba, right? She was attacked, right? Baseless defamation, but we must challenge it. For every lie that's spoken, we have to make the truth be louder, more consistent. It's the voice of justice that matters most, right? And allow empathy, right, to be the response, right? Because we can go a little hard against this kooky one right here, her conspiracy theories. I mean, how many of her conspiracy theories have been debunked? And then she calls herself a journalist, but it seems like the whole of her journalism, right, by and large, regurgitates some truths. You know how that game is played. What they call it? What is it called? It's like where a person will speak like two true statements, right? In order for you to believe the third statement that's a lie. You see what I'm saying? Candace Owens, conspiracy theories, debunked, right? Debunked. Well, hate wears many disguises. Sometimes it's cloaked in illusion, but always it's rooted in the same destructive core. I mean, can't you see, in a sense, like she's destroying herself? But like I said, it's all in the eyes, right? It's all in the eyes, right? They say the eyes are the window to the soul, right? When she was attacking black people, the soul people, we had to ask, well, where's her soul? Right? We see how she's now going against the other Jews, or the J words, right? She's going after the Jews, right? The state of Israel, right? She's going after, see how she's going after this Brigitte Macron. I mean, and what in the world does that have to do with the price of tea in China? You know what I'm saying? It's all in the eyes. Manchurian Candace. Manchurian Candace. So, Candace Owens first targeted the black community. She coined this term called Blexit. Blexit. She painted black Americans, she is, I think, a Caribbean, from the Caribbean, up here, but, nothing against our brothers and sisters, but, you have to take the rotten apple, You can't let the rotten apple, right, spoil the rest, right? So she painted black Americans as mentally enslaved by the Democratic Party, right? And she painted that with a very wide brush. Everybody except her. It's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes. And she also dismissed police brutality as, on behalf of her masses, right, as a misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding, right? Rather than, right, white supremacist systemic injustice. Next, what came? It's all in the eyes. What came next? Right? A wave of anti-Semitism. But see, when we really look at it in proper context, this is just the other side of the coin, right? You flip one side of the coin, heads. You flip the other side of the coin, tails, right? Owens, she claimed that the ones they call the Ashkenazi Jews, right, are descendants of these corrupt Khazarians with nefarious agendas. Now, remember what I said, right? Remember what I said, right? The whole plot is that you'll say two true statements, right? And then you'll follow up with a lie, right? So after you get people to believe, right, the first two true statements, right, this is what traps them in the third lie if they can't really think for themselves. And if you get them all caught up, right, on emotionalism, right? If you get them all caught up on emotionalism, on fear, right? Which one you prefer, to be loved or feared, right? One answers to be feared. Why? Because fear, right, the phobias last much longer, right, than the love, right? And besides, fear for one who is on such a low vibrational frequency is easier to access, right, than love. I mean, she even invoked it, right, against, the Euro Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews. She even invoked an ancient blood libel against Leo Frank. Right? Her rhetoric earned her a suspension from YouTube for a moment, and condemnation from Jewish groups. Now, what's so interesting is that when she was spewing her rhetoric against black folks, where was her suspension? You see what I'm saying? Right? Flip one side, heads, right? Heads, I win. Tails, you lose. You see how that flip goes right there, right? And now, Owens has turned her attacks to France's First Lady Brigitte Macron, right? Spreading this gender bending conspiracy tale, right? That she was born a male. Who knows? But it's based on nothing but wild speculations, right? I mean, like if you can speculate, then everybody can speculate, right? I speculate that you really are Candace Owens. You really are Kundis, right? You really are a Manchurian Candace, right? You're a Manchurian candidate, right? You're another version of that which the Manchurian Candidate was all about, right? Somebody, who's all wound up, right? But I think something happened this time, I think she's a little bit out of control. You know what I'm saying? Spreading this conspiracy. So the Macrons have filed, check this out, right? A 219-page, 22-count defamation lawsuit in Delaware describing Owens' claims as, quote, outlandish, defamatory, and far-fetched fictions. Now notice something, right? So against the French Prime Minister's wife, right, these conspiracies, this filth, right, this evil that she spews is said to be what? Outlandish, defamatory, far-fetched. When she went against the European Jews, the white Jews, they took her off of YouTube. You know what I'm saying? She was suspended from YouTube. You know what I mean? And she was condemned. But notice, where did it begin? Right? So when it came for the black people, who said something? Who said anything? Right? Black people spoke up. When they heard what you said, how could you say that? You know what I'm saying? Yes, she pointed out some things about the BLM, but she labeled, right? She labeled or libeled, you see, the blood libel against the Jews. Yes, if that is wrong, then what about this libel against black people, right? And this inner hate, right? This inner hate, right? I think it's the princess syndrome. Well, despite the lawsuit, Candace Owens, what did she do? She doubled down. She doubled down, calling the lawsuit, guess what she called it? A PR stunt. Oh my goodness. She called the lawsuit a publicity, right? A publicity stunt, right? A PR stunt, you know what I'm saying? And refused to back down, right? So, what ties all this together? A hapless flunky of the British Pilgrim Society's American Uniparty. Well, you have to check this out. This is what what she married into, right? What she married into. Candace, right? Amber Farmer, right? Nee Owens, right? Who is she, right? Who is she really, right? Let's dig into her background. Anybody did any research on really what her background is? Who is she, right? Is she a black American? Right? She says she's not. She's Caribbean. Where's she from? Right? Who is her people? Right? Well, we know with black people, she already burned those bridges, but who is her people? Right? So what ties all this together? Whether it's through racial framing and defaming of black people, or what you would think is, well, her people, black people, right? Black American people in particular. Right? She was like a mercenary out there in the media and social media against black people. And she was used very, very effectively for that. Right? But it was coupled with a lot of historical distortions. Right? She had an agenda. right? She was on an agenda. Now she's dealing with gender-based conspiracy. Now these attacks, they all reflect the same playbook. Each one of these attacks against black people, against Jews, right? And, against, I have to say, this French Prime Minister's wife, They're designed to provoke, to degrade, and to profit. Provoke, right? Degrade, profit, and they all thrive on phobias, on social media phobias, social media fears that people have in society, right? Based on misinformation and based on disinformation. Well, so we have to know about, her background, right? And what about her husband's background, right? Who are they and who are they really, right? Candace. Well, we can. Yes, we can, Candace. Yes, we can. And we must. We must call it what it is. Defamation, right? Whether targeting race. Now, notice what she did. She targeted race, right? Religion, right? Or identity, gender. Now, just suppose it just turns out that this French Prime Minister woman, right, is really a woman. My goodness. These assaults. This is assault, right? Assault, right, on humanity, right? Have no place in civil discourse. Well, we have freedom of speech in America. We can say what we want to say. Yes, we can. But there's still a consequence, right? Even in the Bible, since Candace want to seem like she just goes to mass and then she prays and then she does her show. This is all that she does and everything. Well, you know what the Bible say, right? You should know what the Bible say. You know what I mean? You should know what the Bible say about truth. You know what I'm saying? Let's demand facts, respect empathy, and remember the truth, right? And remember that truth, no matter how unpopular it is, it deserves to be louder than the hate and the disinformation. You know what I mean? You could not like something, but then when you're proven over and over again, remember even the George Floyd incident, how she clearly chose a side, right? And we have to question that right there. What's up with her, right? If this matters to you right here, we're going to get into more on this on the Rosemary's Baby connection of Candace Owens, right? Definitely going to touch on that a little bit more, right? But right here, on Candace, right? And also look into her background, right? Who is she, right? Who is her husband? What did she marry into? What's really going on right here? So if this matters to you, then hit like, subscribe, share, and let's keep fighting, right, the disinformation, the misinformation with truth, right, and with real information. One story, one truth at a time.
You cannot trust AI. It can be a fast way to get an answer, but it needs always